Thank you, Premier. I think the members of the press, and particularly my parliamentary colleagues here on the stage, will be relieved to know that I'm not going to go over the speech I gave in Parliament in its entirety again. So I do have a lot of paper here, but I'll try to be brief, although there is a lot to say. There is a lot to say. As Premier just mentioned, Bermuda is facing a very serious challenge in terms of its economy. Probably it's the most serious challenge in its history. But we are sticking to a plan that we outlined during the election campaign, a two-track policy. The first track is to put in place policies to stimulate growth. And the second track is to control and contain and reduce wasteful government spending. And the proposals put forth in my budget speech address both those areas. And I would like to sort of just go on that right now. First, let me sort of state the obvious. At least it's obvious to me, but it needs to be obvious to Bermudians, that when it's all said and done, we are projecting a public sector borrowing requirement. That means that you add up all the numbers and subtract all the numbers, and what's left over, you have to borrow. And we are going to have to borrow, according to our projections, another $331 million in the next fiscal year. And that is an unprecedented amount. But it's based on our projections of how we see things unfolding in the current year. Bermuda economy continues to struggle. I think we've just completed a fourth consecutive year of economic contraction. Now, I don't know what you call that, but it's certainly an extended recession. And it's not going to go away on its own. We have to make things happen here, and that's what this budget is about. That this government is focused on enacting policies that will increase the number of potential employers on the island, and thereby the demand for labor, and also put in place policies that will reduce the marginal cost of hiring Bermudians. It's important to put the thing in perspective that only an employer can create a job. We're focused on job creation. Only employers can create jobs. We will do everything within our power to create jobs for Bermudians by improving the environment for entrepreneurial activities in Bermuda so that job creators can do what they do best, which is to take risks, seize market opportunities, and the byproduct of that is the creation of jobs. That's how jobs are created. We know how jobs are created, and we are going to concentrate our efforts in doing exactly that. Currently, the authorized debt ceiling for the government is $1.45 billion. But in view of the forecast for the operating deficit for the year, not only this year, but the coming 5 years, that ceiling must be raised. It is the view of this government that the past practice of ratcheting up the debt ceiling year after year is a statement of failure. It shows that we don't know what we're doing. It shows that we don't have a plan. So what we've decided to do is to put in a new debt ceiling, a high debt ceiling, but a debt ceiling that has other rules that help to manage the debt, rules that we commit to live by. So that next week, matter of fact, we laid the legislation today. We will be dealing with it next week. We laid legislation to raise the authorized debt ceiling to $2.5 billion. Now, it's important to note that this only authorizes the government borrowing limit. It does not prescribe the actual borrowing. We do not expect to borrow that much, but we want to have a level that is pragmatic, realistic, and most of all, static. We don't want to be adjusting this level anytime soon. The only adjustment I'll be looking for this will be once we get our program in place and the economy starts to come back, we would look to reducing this level in the future. But we don't want to be ratcheting up, which I think is very detrimental for our profile in credit markets. We will commit to keep public debt at such a level that the net debt to GDP ratio will not exceed 38%. We will also commit to another rule: the desirability of having a debt to revenue ratio that is below 80%. Our debt to revenue is considerably higher than that now, but that is a target that we intend to strive to meet. And the last rule is to have a debt service cost to revenue ratio below 10%. So our debt service to revenue ratio right now is in the region of 15%, and our net debt to revenue ratio is 200%. So we've got a long way to go. We've got a lot of work to do to get our debt to a level that we consider to be satisfactory. Okay, let's move on to what I've called non-tax policies to promote job growth. We explore the issue of competitiveness in this budget. And it's pretty clear that Bermuda has become uncompetitive. If we were competitive, our economy would be growing. The fact that our economy is contracting is that we're not competitive. People are doing business with other jurisdictions instead of us because either our product is too expensive, or it's not of high enough quality, or it's not being delivered in a timely fashion. So insofar as the quality is concerned, one of the things that we've already done is to address the issue of intellectual capital. Term limits were harming our ability to attract and keep intellectual capital here, non-Bermudian intellectual capital. Employers told us that. And Bermudians who work with those non-Bermudians who comprise intellectual capital, when those non-Bermudians left, then Bermudians lost their jobs. So term limits turned out to be job killers instead of job savers. Bermudians were told that they were job savers. They were not. They were job killers. So insofar as speed to market is concerned, speed of delivery, we are going about our business to get rid of red tape in government. My colleague, Dr. Gibbons, is very much involved with that in looking at how we can get rid of our red tape. We also have a cabinet committee, the Economic Development Committee, which is involved in trying to compress the time that is taken to get approvals for inward direct investment. That's crucial to our future, inward direct investment. There is no investment capital in Bermuda. It's got to come from outside. So if we want to develop Bermuda, we want to create jobs, we have to get that capital from outside of Bermuda. Bermudians don't have any net savings. It's a frightening thing to say, but we don't have any net savings. So we are taking all the efforts that we can to try to attract capital from outside Bermuda. And the cabinet committee that we formed will go a long way to try to compress the time and to remove the red tape that people have to go through to set up businesses in Bermuda. And that's one of the reasons that the direct inward investment in Bermuda has slowed down to a trickle over the last 25 years. It's because of the red tape. So we're acting on that. Tax policies to promote growth and create jobs. Well, we had two tax initiatives to create jobs in this budget. The first one you're familiar with, which is a 2-year payroll tax holiday for new Bermudian hiring. This tax holiday lowers the marginal cost to an employer for new Bermudian hiring. So the employer part of the payroll tax gets suspended. The part of the tax that employees often have to pay, they still have to pay. But that's like any other worker in Bermuda. They have to pay it. So we think that will be at least tax neutral for the economy and for the government. So we don't see ourselves losing money from that tax holiday. The second tax initiative is relates to license fees for non-Bermudians' purchase of Bermuda property. Currently, that license fee is 25% on the value of the property. It's proposed to cut the fee to 8% for a period of 18 months, and after 18 months, it'll go back up to 12.5%. For condos that are not used for tourism, it's proposed to cut the license fee from 18% to 6%, increasing to 8% after 18 months. For PRC holders, it's proposed to reduce the license fee to 4%, increasing 6% in 18 months. What this does, ladies and gentlemen, is to stimulate inward direct investment into the Bermuda economy. So we think this is a win-win situation. It'll increase government revenues on various fronts. It's not going to cost the government a penny. It's going to make money for government. We're going to make money on stamp duty. We're going to make money on customs duties. We're going to make money on payroll tax on this. So this would be a money maker for government. This would be a job creator for Bermuda. So this is part of our stimulus packages that we have come up with, which will not cost the government money, which is the important thing. You know, we could cut taxes by some huge amount in some effort to stimulate the economy. We don't believe that that's the way to go. The government must remain solvent. We have to retain our credibility in financial markets. Okay. There are other tax things that we've mentioned. The taxes on cigarettes, tobacco, beer, wine, and other spirits will be raised. They'll increase the revenue by about $2 million. Land tax will go up at the same high echelons, right? Properties with ARV over $90,000. That'll be increased. And the amount of tax we think we'll get from that is $3.4 million. This increase will not affect 96% of property owners in Bermuda. The exemption previously afforded to seniors for vehicle licenses has been maintained for vehicles of classes A, B, C, and D. However, for larger vehicles in classes E, F, G, and H, that exemption has been rescinded. In addition, overall car license fees will go up by 3% for vehicles. This will recoup an estimated $2.2 million for the next fiscal year for government. There's going to be an increase in bus passes, mainly aimed at our visitors, which will increase revenue by $500,000. Corporate service tax, which has been unchanged since 1995, will be raised from 4% to 6%. That'll achieve a revenue of about $1.5 million. All other taxes will remain approximately unchanged. Immigration fees are going to be varied, but the net effect of that will be neutral.